Every single year, the XXL freshman list comes out, and every single year, people complain. It never fails. It's rinse and repeat.
Oh my gosh, this list is horrible. Why do they pick these people? How could they do this? This is an industry plant list. Why do they?
But the conversation has started to die down since less and less people care about the XXL list every single year that it goes on. There was a time, though, where the XXL freshman list was one of the biggest annual things to happen in rap. Like, people really cared about that list, and it really was a symbol of who was next up to be a star in the genre. So people being mad at who XXL picked for the list actually did make sense at a time, because that used to be a huge cosign. However, I believe in this modern era, XXL literally can't get it right. What's good, YouTube? It's Justice I Used to Be Paying. Today I'm back with another video, and in this video I'm going to be letting you know why I believe XXL literally can't get the freshman list right. But before I get into that, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Do all those things. It helps me out a ton. The XXL freshman list is an indicator of who will be the future stars of rap. Rappers who haven't quite reached that well-recognized space of superstardom and popularity, yet they're building momentum. And for the people who are unaware of them, the XXL list is supposed to exist as a sort of guide to who you should be looking out for on the come up. And historically, XXL hasn't been that far off or too inaccurate, with names like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, Future, Playboi Carti, Meg Thee Stallion, and plenty of others appearing on the list, giving it some sort of real legitimacy and meaning to the list, which is what causes the massive outrage every time a list comes out and the fans believe they got it wrong. We got our yearly XXL outrage a few weeks ago when they announced the list, but when I went and checked out the list for myself, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I thought that they pretty much got it right for the most part. Everyone on the list has their own sort of like online buzz and online support. And some people were complaining about, oh, well, I don't know any of these people. What are their names? Who are these people? But that's kind of the point of the list. But that also plays into the reason why I say they will never get it right again. You can say that there are a few people who probably could have made the list and maybe deserve to, like a Georgiana or an AZ Cheek or AZ Cheek, however you say his name, but I really don't think that this list is that bad. The list has a ton of different internet rap subgenre flavors. Baby Chief Do It fits that, Chicago drill wave, that aggressive style of music. Ray Vaughn is kind of that West Coast storytelling lyricist. YTB Fat fits more with the traditional trap sound that we've seen over the last decade or so. Laserdem is like almost meme rap, but he's not really meme rap, but he's also in that like chronically online space of underground music that interacts with, Plaqueboy Max and things of that nature. EBK J-Lo is that super heavy West Coast gang rap lane. Jello is commercialized rap that honestly fits like the sports rap combo lane, where his music's going to be heavily intertwined with like sports commercials and video games like Madden and 2K, kind of like the song Pump It Up by Joe Budden. I really thought that song was like 20 times platinum the way it was used in like movies and video games, just to eventually realize that the song barely was like gold. That was like one of the most mind-blowing things that I've ever existed in my life, but you get the idea. This list spreads out over a bunch of different niches of rap. The reason I say XXL will never get it right again is because it's just so hard to predict who will actually be the future stars of rap. The internet has expanded so far, and there's so much opportunity. There is a million different lanes in which somebody can be a star in rap, as I just described not too long ago. Just looking at the list, the fans of Ray Vaughn probably have never heard of Baby Chief Do It. Despite them both being rappers that are on their come up, they're from such different worlds, they might as well be from different genres of music. They both do massive numbers though, as somebody who is an upcoming artist. These separate bubbles, these separate subgenres of rap are so big on their own. However, just 5 to 10 years ago, there weren't as many subgenres of rap that XXL actually had to give space to on their list. There were like maybe a few, maybe a handful, but it's nothing in comparison to what we have now. Just look at the 2020 list. Polo G, NLE Choppa, Lil TJ, Fabio Foreign, Rod Wave, and Lotto all entertained somewhat similar audiences or had some shared fans. In the 2015 list, Fetty Wap, Dej Loaf, OG Mako, Shy Glizzy, K-Camp, and Goldlink all entertained similar spaces. Due to the internet, the rap game has expanded so much now that we are pulling people from completely different spaces and still having to respect them. More than that though, with the internet dominating the music space and taking away power from the traditional music platforms or traditional music pipeline like the radio, TV, and entertainment conglomerates, people are blowing up faster than ever. But at the same time, they're falling off faster than ever as well. With the combination of TikTok, streaming services, YouTube, Twitch, all it really takes is for one or two of your songs to blow up and you're going viral beyond your wildest dreams, your wildest imaginations. You are just a few songs away in some cases from being one of the biggest rising stars in the genre. Now, it doesn't always happen that fast, but all it really takes is a hot couple of months, which can happen on the internet. You can have a hot 5 to 6 months and you're in line to be a XXL freshman. Just look at somebody like Jello. Jello has like 3 official songs out, maybe 4 official songs out right now, but he is on the list. And when you look at it from the perspective of his clout and his buzz, it makes sense. Now you can say, oh, well, you know, Jello hasn't put in the work. He hasn't dropped enough music. He doesn't have a track list of music to be considered a XXL freshman. But when you look at the numbers, you understand why XXL picked him. There's no real metric that you can really hold these artists to when it comes to trying to judge them for the XXL freshman list besides internet clout and numbers. Because you can say, oh, well, you know, judge them by their discography and how good their music is, but that's subjective at the end of the day. Some people might think this style of music is garbage, and some people might think that same style of music is amazing. You can say, oh, well, we need to judge them based off their rapping ability and how well they can actually rap, because that actually matters, and, you know, maybe that other stuff, internet clout and stuff, that goes away, but rap skills really matter, and you can say that as well. But if that were the case, then somebody like Playboi Carti would have never made the XXL list, or Lil Uzi Vert. And a lot of people at that time, which Lil Uzi can rap, but regardless, that's another topic. But a lot of people at the time when they made the list, their separate lists, people were saying things like, these guys don't deserve to be on the XXL freshman list. And now with hindsight being around, we can clearly tell that that would have been a massive mistake to leave off Playboi Carti from the XXL freshman list because he doesn't rap like a traditional rapper. So you kind of do have to just go based on who's hot at the time, who's popping at the time. And sometimes it doesn't even take 5 years for us to see that artist not pan out. When Lil Pump and Smoke Perp made the XXL list in 2018, it wasn't a shock. They both had massive songs before the list. Lil Pump specifically had Gucci Gang taking over the world, yet anybody with a bit of sense knew Lil Pump was a fad and that he would fall off. But they were people that you just couldn't not put on the list at the time. But by the time 2020 came around and they had already fallen off, Lil Pump was an easy target and an example of XXL really having no choice but to get it wrong because of how unavoidable and how popular he was at the time. But most people still saw Lil Pump as a guy who would probably fall off. However, one that might hurt a little more is Roddy Ricch. There was no leaving him off the list in 2019. He looked like he was going to be the next big star from the West Coast. But by the time we get to 2022, maybe even like the end of 2021, he had kind of already fallen off massively. These new artists don't have to go through the traditional industry pipeline that solidified them as prospects of the future, and specifically prospects for the XXL freshman list anymore. Back even like 15 years ago, like, you had to kind of go through a traditional route. You started off in your city, maybe even still passing out CDs, but you had to build some sort of buzz in your local town, your local area, and then you move on to maybe performing at some clubs, maybe some parties or something like that, and then you end up maybe on the very, very local radio station, and somehow a label will notice you from that radio station and maybe sign you, and then they try to pair you with some of their bigger artists, and then your songs start getting more exposure. Maybe you even end up on a regional or maybe even a national radio station, and you kind of go through these steps of progression as an artist that kind of helps solidify you to be somebody with a foundation before you get to that XXL freshman list where now you're on the world scale. There was a much more traditional route, which kind of helped keep some of these flashes in the pan at a minimum. Of course, it still happened, but there weren't as many as there are today. Now the traditional route is completely dead. Like, I've seen people go from complete nobodies to being on the national scene, and people in their town don't even know who that is. People in their city have never heard of this artist, but now this artist from their city is supposed to be lined up to be this next big thing. It's a complete skip of steps that didn't exist before the internet became as popular as it is now. When it comes to picking these guys as prospects for the future, it's a complete mystery box with the way the internet exists today. When you look at these guys as prospects when they're going up and they're super, super hot, you can point to somebody like maybe Lil Pump and Tekashi 6ix9ine and easily say, oh yeah, that guy's gonna fall off. He's just a trend. He's just a fad. He'll be gone in the next 2 to 3 years. Don't even worry about it. Don't pick him as a XXL freshman. But at the same time, people would have pointed at somebody like Lil Yachty or Playboy Cardi and said those exact same things and would have been completely incorrect. And on the other hand of things, like I mentioned earlier, you could have looked at somebody like a Roddy Ricch and said, oh yeah, that's a guy who's for sure going to be one of the next big things, one of the next guys to carry rap as a genre on his back over the next 10 to 15 years. And where we exist today, that is very much not the case. So for as much as you can say, oh, well, there are things you can look at, you can point to, oh, well, some of these guys are gimmicky, some of them are not. It really all is a mystery box at the end of the day. As good as it may seem for some of these artists to have this like immediate overnight success sometimes where they just go from a complete nobody to one of the top names in the genre in terms of rising stars, at the exact same time, these guys are kind of blowing up without a real fan base. Like, they have fans because they're hot and their music is trendy, but when that time comes, when they eventually are down, and it's gonna come eventually because that's just how music works for everybody, there's gonna come a period where you are down. A lot of these artists, they end up bottoming out because they don't have a real fan base. They were just hot, they were just trendy. They didn't have to spend time working and building a foundation of, okay, I got 15,000 people in my local area, and then I move up to my state side, and now the whole state is kind of rocking with me. I got multiple millions of fans, then I go nationwide, and now I have tens of millions. They don't really have that foundation. They just kind of immediately rocketed up to the top, and the internet takes away as fast as it gives. The reality of the rap and music scene of today is that it's even more volatile than it's ever been before because of the internet. Despite XXL having a questionable at times track record, and even I have criticized some of their lists and thought that they missed people and should have had this person on and this person off, just looking at the landscape of where rap is today, it's impossible to get these lists even half right at this point, because when you look at some of these guys that they're picking, you give it like 3 years and you think to yourself, who on earth ever thought that this guy would be a star? Who on earth ever thought that this guy would be a superstar in rap? But at the time, it made a lot of sense. The internet was rocking with him. So for as much as I have criticized XXL personally when it comes to their list, especially over the last like 7 years or so, at the same time, I can't really give them too much crap for it, because I don't think that there's any person or any conglomeration of people that could pick a list based off of their internet hype, based off of their internet clout, and be right even half of the time when it comes to who they're picking. Like, a few years ago, maybe like 4 to 5 years ago, I was ready, probably like 4 years ago, I was ready to die on the hill that Summers should have been picked for the XXL list. I was pissed. I was furious. I couldn't believe they left Summers off the XXL list. Now, I still love Summers to this day, but when you look at where he is now and where he was 4 years ago, there's not that much of a difference. Like, that's no disrespect to Summers. I like the guy, I like his music, but him being left off the list, in hindsight, wasn't a terrible idea. Like, he's not a bad rapper, but he didn't blow up to be this huge star that was going to be a major name in the rap scene, which is kind of the goal of the XXL freshman list. So, you know, it's just really hard to tell in this era. It's just really hard to tell what is internet hype that's here to stay and who's going to be a fly-by-night guy who in 4 years you look like a complete idiot for trying to talk about as a future star in the game. But if you made it this far, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. Make sure you leave a like, comment, subscribe, do all those things. It helps me out a ton. I go by the name of Pay. Yeah, let's get to 100K. Road to 100K is still going on. But yeah, I go by the name of Pay. Have a good day. Be safe. Be blessed. Peace.